Before John Badham directed Saturday Night Fever, Gordy bankrolled a Negro League baseball film, and Steven Spielberg nearly abandoned Jaws to helm it. Discover these forgotten secrets and bizarre behind-the-scenes stories from this cult sports comedy that launched careers, featured Hollywood's first Black MLB umpire playing himself, and transformed one actor into a touring rock band. Fact 1. John Badham's theatrical film debut. Before disco fame. Before John Badham became a household name for capturing the disco era on film, he made his theatrical directorial debut with the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings in 1976. At the time, Badham was primarily known for his television work, having directed episodes of shows like Cannon and the Bold Ones, along with several acclaimed TV movies. The young director had been cutting his teeth in television for years, and this Negro League baseball comedy was his big break into feature films. What makes this fact particularly fascinating is the timing. Just 1 year later, Badham would direct Saturday Night Fever, the 1977 cultural phenomenon that not only made John Travolta a superstar, but also defined an entire generation's relationship with disco music and dance. In interviews years later, Badham revealed that his experience with the musical numbers and choreographed sequences in Bingo Long actually helped prepare him for Saturday Night Fever. He had been studying Busby Berkeley and Fred Astaire films to understand how to shoot elaborate movement sequences, skills that translated perfectly to filming those iconic dance floor scenes at the 2001 Odyssey Disco. The success of Bingo Long, which grossed $33 million, proved that Badham could handle a major theatrical release and opened the door for him to take on Saturday Night Fever. From there, his career skyrocketed, leading to other major films like War Games and Blue Thunder. But it all started with a scrappy baseball movie about barnstorming Negro League players, making Bingo Long not just an entertaining sports comedy, but also the launching pad for one of Hollywood's most versatile directors. Fact 2. Steven Spielberg almost produced instead of making Jaws. Steven Spielberg was initially very interested in having a hand in producing the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings, which could have drastically changed both his career trajectory and the film itself. In the early 1970s, Spielberg was still a rising young director who had just completed the Sugarland Express for producers Richard Zanuck and David Brown. The Bingo Long project caught his attention, and he seriously considered getting involved in bringing William Brashler's novel to the screen. However, fate intervened in the form of a mechanical shark. When Spielberg's 1975 thriller Jaws became an unprecedented blockbuster success, literally inventing the concept of the summer, blockbuster and becoming the highest-grossing film of all time until Star Wars, everything changed for the 20-something director. The massive success of Jaws meant that Spielberg suddenly had the power and resources to make virtually any project he wanted. Rather than splitting his attention on producing Bingo Long, he chose to pour his energy into his next directorial effort, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which would be released in 1977. It's intriguing to imagine how different Bingo Long might have been with Spielberg's involvement, given his demonstrated skill at combining entertainment with serious themes. The film still succeeded without him, grossing $33 million and receiving positive reviews. But the what-if scenario remains one of Hollywood's interesting near misses. Meanwhile, Spielberg's decision to focus on his own directorial projects rather than producing paid off spectacularly, cementing his status as one of cinema's greatest filmmakers. Fact 3. Motown's Gordy co-produced this baseball movie. When most people think of Motown, they think of legendary soul music and artists like Diana Ross, Marvin Gaye, and the Supremes, not baseball movies. Yet Gordy, the visionary founder of Motown Records, served as executive producer on the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings through his film division, Motown Productions. Gordy had launched Motown Productions in 1968, hoping to replicate his massive success in the music industry within the film world. The company had already produced Lady Sings the Blues in 1972, which starred Diana Ross, and also featured both Billy D. Williams and Richard Pryor. For Bingo Long, Gordy partnered with Universal Pictures, with Rob Cohen serving as producer and Gordy as executive producer. This made Bingo Long one of the rare theatrical sports films to be bankrolled by a music company. Motown Productions brought its signature attention to period detail and authenticity. And naturally, the film featured a memorable musical score by William Goldstein, along with songs performed by Thelma Houston, including the Bingo Long Song, written by Gordy himself with Ronald Miller. The film represented Motown's continued commitment to telling important African American stories during the 1970s, following their biopics of Billie Holiday and moving into historical subjects like the Negro Leagues. While Motown Productions never achieved the same legendary status in film as it did in music, Bingo Long stands as one of its most successful theatrical releases, proving that Gordy's vision extended beyond the recording studio and into preserving important chapters of Black history on the silver screen. Fact 4. Future Otis Day won an NAACP award as a mute character. Dwayne Jesse's performance as Rainbow in the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings earned him the NAACP Image Award for Best Supporting Actor, despite playing a character who couldn't speak for most of the film. Rainbow, the team's bat boy, loses his ability to talk after being struck in the head by a pitch early in the story, and Jesse had to convey all of his character's emotions and reactions through physical performance and facial expressions alone. The role showcased Jesse's considerable acting talent, and the NAACP recognition was a major validation of his work. But here's where the story gets really interesting. On the very night Jesse won that Image Award, Universal Studios offered him the role of Otis Day in National Lampoon's Animal House. Jesse was riding high from the award and actively working in other films like Thank God It's Friday, when director John Landis and casting director Michael Chinich pitched him the part. They specifically wanted a personal face rather than a big personality, and they thought Jesse fit perfectly. However, Jesse's initial reaction was to turn down the role, and he actually walked out the door. But something made him reconsider. He later described it as something hitting him in the back of the head, telling him he'd be a fool not to take it. He accepted, and that decision changed his life. The character Otis Day became so iconic that Jesse eventually formed a real touring band called Otis Day and the Knights, playing over 260 shows in their first year alone and continuing to perform for decades. Fact 5. Rainbow mysteriously regains speech at film's end. One of the strangest plot holes in the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings involves the character Rainbow and his inexplicable recovery. Early in the film, Rainbow, the team's bat boy played by Dwayne Jesse, suffers a serious injury when he's hit in the head by a pitch during a game. The beaning renders him completely unable to speak, and this becomes a significant plot point that affects multiple scenes throughout the movie. His inability to communicate verbally creates both dramatic and comedic moments, and the injury itself serves as commentary on how Negro League team owners treated their players. The team's owner actually makes all the players split the cost of Rainbow's medical bills rather than paying for it himself, which becomes one of the catalysts for Bingo Long deciding to form his own independent team. Rainbow continues to travel with the All-Stars throughout their barnstorming tour, remaining completely mute and communicating only through gestures and expressions. Then, near the end of the film, Rainbow suddenly reappears and is able to speak normally again. The movie provides absolutely no explanation for his miraculous recovery. No scene showing medical treatment, no dialogue about his condition improving, and no acknowledgement that anything unusual has occurred. He simply shows up talking as if he'd never lost his voice in the first place. This glaring continuity issue has puzzled viewers for decades, and there's been no official explanation from the filmmakers about whether it was an intentional choice, a scripting oversight, or perhaps scenes explaining his recovery that ended up on the cutting room floor. Either way, Rainbow's mysterious healing remains one of the film's most baffling elements. Fact 6. MLB's first black umpire. Played an umpire. The Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings featured a remarkable piece of casting that added genuine historical significance to the production. Emmett Ashford, who made history in 1966 as Major League Baseball's first African-American umpire in the American League, appeared in the film playing an umpire. Ashford had broken the color barrier for umpires nearly 20 years after Jackie Robinson broke it for players, enduring his own struggles with discrimination and skepticism throughout his career. He spent 15 years working his way up through the minor leagues, becoming known not just for his competence, but also for his flamboyant, theatrical style of calling balls and strikes. He would sprint down baselines, make dramatic gestures, and interact with crowds in ways that made him a fan favorite. By the time he appeared in Bingo Long in 1976, Ashford had already retired from active umpiring after working the 1970 World Series. He had taken a position as a public relations advisor for baseball commissioner Bowie Kuhn, which allowed him more flexibility to pursue other opportunities like film work. His appearance in the movie wasn't just a cameo, it was a way of honoring the real history of black baseball that the film was depicting. Ashford also appeared in television shows like Ironside and The Jacksons, and he continued umpiring in old-timers games and clinics. He served as umpire-in-chief for Alaska's Summer League for 3 years and remained a beloved figure in baseball until his death in 1980 from a heart attack. His presence in Bingo Long connected the film's fictionalized Negro League story to the real ongoing struggle for equality in professional baseball. Fact 7. Stan Shaw used a body double for baseball scenes. Stan Shaw delivered a charismatic performance as Esquire Joe Calloway, the talented young player who eventually breaks the color barrier at the film's conclusion. But there was one problem. Shaw couldn't actually play baseball. The character of Esquire Joe was an amalgamation of baseball legends Willie Mays and Jackie Robinson, representing both athletic excellence and the breakthrough into white Major League Baseball. The role required someone who could convincingly portray a baseball prodigy with exceptional fielding and hitting abilities, while Shaw, who came from a background in theater and martial arts, could handle the dramatic aspects of the role with ease. The actual baseball action sequences were beyond his skill set. Rather than have Shaw attempt to learn baseball at a professional level in the limited time before filming, the production made the practical decision to use a body double for all of Esquire Joe's baseball scenes. This meant that whenever you see Esquire Joe making spectacular catches in center field, stealing bases, or delivering clutch hits, you're actually watching a skilled baseball player standing in for Shaw. The filmmakers shot these sequences carefully, using camera angles and editing techniques to maintain the illusion that Shaw was performing the athletic feats himself. For close-ups and dialogue scenes on the field, Shaw would be filmed, but for any actual playing action, the double took over. This was a common Hollywood practice, especially in sports films where the dramatic requirements of a role didn't necessarily align with the athletic abilities of the best available actors. Shaw went on to have a successful career, appearing in films like Rocky, The Great Santini, and Snake Eyes, proving that his lack of baseball skills didn't hurt his acting prospects. Fact 8. Tony Burton's first film before Rocky fame. Tony Burton appeared in the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings in 1976, the same year that would change his career forever with his role in Rocky. Burton played Isaac, one of the All-Stars team members, in Bingo Long, a supporting role that nonetheless gave him valuable experience in a major theatrical release. Burton was a former professional boxer himself, having competed in the Golden Gloves and fought professionally before his acting career began. His journey to acting had been unusual and redemptive. After serving more than 3 years in prison in Chino, California for robbery, Burton participated in acting exercises as part of a therapy program, which helped steer him toward a new profession. He later reflected that prison was actually productive for him because he earned his high school diploma and a degree from the University of California while incarcerated. But most importantly, he got himself together and figured out how to proceed without destroying himself. After his release, he began working with small theater groups in Los Angeles. He shared an agent with Carl Weathers, who brought Burton to the attention of Rocky's producers. Burton would go on to play Tony Duke Evers, the trainer and manager to Apollo Creed, in the first 2 Rocky films, and later became Rocky's trainer in subsequent installments. His character appeared in 6 Rocky films total, with his final appearance in 2006's Rocky Balboa. Burton's dual appearances in 1976 in both Bingo Long and Rocky represented the beginning of a long, successful character acting career that included roles in The Shining, Stir Crazy, and the television series Frank's Place. Fact 9. Filmed at historic 1929 ballpark in Georgia. Luther Williams Field in Macon, Georgia, served as the primary filming location for the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings, and the production team chose it for a very specific reason. The ballpark's landmarks and overall aesthetic looked authentically 1930s, which was exactly when the film takes place. Built in 1929, the historic stadium had barely changed in the decades since, maintaining its original covered grandstand with a classic black iron gate surrounding the field that reads Macon Baseball Park at the entrance. Director John Badham and his team specifically sought out locations that could convincingly transport audiences back to the era of barnstorming Negro League baseball, and Luther Williams Field fit the bill perfectly. The stadium had been home to various minor league teams over the years, including the Macon Peaches and later the Macon Dodgers, and it retained that vintage minor league charm. The production also filmed at several other Georgia locations, including Morgan Field in Macon, which was used for youth baseball, Grayson Stadium in Savannah, and Wallace Field in Crawford County. Exterior scenes that were supposed to be set in St. Louis residential neighborhoods were actually filmed in Savannah, while rural community scenes were shot in small towns like Talbotton and Monticello. The decision to film at these authentic locations, rather than constructing elaborate sets, paid off in the film's visual authenticity. Luther Williams Field's Hollywood career didn't end with Bingo Long. Decades later, the same ballpark would be used for filming scenes in the Jackie Robinson biopic 42 in 2012, and Clint Eastwood's Trouble with the Curve the same year, proving its continued value as a historically accurate baseball filming location. Fact 10. Real Negro League players performed stunts. The Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings achieved its authentic baseball atmosphere not just through vintage locations and period costumes, but by hiring actual former Negro League players to perform in the film. Former members of the Indianapolis Clowns, the real barnstorming team that served as inspiration for the fictional All-Stars, were brought in to perform various baseball stunts and the comedic clowning routines that are featured throughout the movie. The Indianapolis Clowns were famous in Negro League history for combining serious competitive baseball with entertaining showmanship, much like the Harlem Globetrotters did for basketball. They would perform choreographed routines between innings, execute trick plays, and engage in theatrical antics that delighted crowds while still playing at a highly competitive level. These weren't just gimmicks. The Clowns were a legitimate team that featured future Hall of Fame players, including a young Hank Aaron who played for them before breaking into the major leagues. By hiring former Clowns players, the filmmakers ensured that the baseball action and entertainment sequences looked genuine and were executed with the kind of skill and timing that only experienced players could provide. These former players understood the nuances of both the athletic and performance aspects of barnstorming baseball, bringing authenticity that would have been impossible to replicate with actors or stunt performers alone. They could execute complex trick plays, perform coordinated comedy routines, and make the challenging athletic moves look effortless. Their involvement connected the film directly to the real history it was depicting, adding a layer of legitimacy and honoring the actual Negro League traditions that the movie was bringing to a wider audience for perhaps the first time in mainstream cinema. Fact 11. Richard Pryor's character had offensive disguise plot. Richard Pryor's character Charlie Snow has one of the film's most controversial and uncomfortable plot threads: his desperate attempts to infiltrate white Major League Baseball by disguising himself as a member of other ethnic groups. Charlie first tries to pass himself off as a Cuban player named Carlos Nevada, practicing his Spanish and attempting to join a white team by claiming Latin American heritage. When that disguise fails, he then poses as a Native American player called Chief Takahoma, complete with stereotypical costume and affected mannerisms. The film presents these disguise attempts as both comedic and tragic, showing Charlie's desperation to escape the limitations placed on black players while also acknowledging the absurdity and offensiveness of his methods. This storyline, while deeply problematic by modern standards, was actually based on real historical tactics that some black players attempted during the era of segregated baseball. A few light-skinned black players did successfully pass as Cuban or Native American to circumvent the color barrier, though these cases were rare. The film uses Charlie's failed attempts to highlight the arbitrary and cruel nature of baseball's racial restrictions. Talented players were excluded solely based on their skin color, leading some to resort to ethnic masquerade. The payoff for Charlie's story arc comes near the end when he finally gets his chance through legitimate means, though the film handles these racially charged disguise scenes with a mix of humor and discomfort that reflects the complex racial dynamics of the 1930s. Modern viewers often find these sequences particularly jarring, as they involve stereotypical portrayals of both Latino and Native American cultures that would be unacceptable in contemporary filmmaking. Fact 12. Massive box office success on modest budget. The Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings proved to be a significant financial success story, grossing $33 million against a production budget of just $9 million. This nearly 4-to-1 return on investment made it one of 1976's most profitable films and a bona fide hit for Universal Pictures and Motown Productions. The film's box office performance was particularly impressive, considering it was a period piece about Negro League baseball, a subject that had rarely been explored in mainstream Hollywood cinema and might have seemed risky to studio executives. The success demonstrated that audiences were hungry for stories about African American history, and that sports films could work even when not centered on contemporary or white athletes. Released on July 16, 1976, the film benefited from strong word-of-mouth and positive reviews that praised the performances of Billy Dee Williams, James Earl Jones, and Richard Pryor. The movie's blend of comedy, drama, and sports action appealed to a broad audience beyond just baseball fans or those specifically interested in Negro League history. It played particularly well in urban markets, but also found success in suburban theaters. The profits from Bingo Long helped validate director John Badham's potential, leading directly to him being hired for Saturday Night Fever, which would become an even bigger box office phenomenon the following year. For Motown Productions, the financial success represented their most commercially viable theatrical release after Lady Sings the Blues, proving that Berry Gordy's film division could compete in Hollywood. The $33 million gross would be equivalent to well over $100 million in today's money, making it a genuine blockbuster by 1970s standards and securing its place as one of the era's most successful African-American-led films. Fact 13. Character based on Satchel Paige's real stunt. One of the most memorable scenes in the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings shows Bingo Long dramatically calling all of his teammates off the field before striking out a batter. And this theatrical moment wasn't invented by Hollywood screenwriters. It was directly based on something legendary Negro League pitcher Satchel Paige actually did during his barnstorming career. Leroy Satchel Paige was one of the most dominant and charismatic pitchers in baseball history, playing in the Negro Leagues for decades before finally getting his chance in the major leagues at age 42. Paige was known not just for his incredible pitching skills, but also for his showmanship and confidence. During barnstorming tours, when his team would be playing against amateur or semi-professional teams, Paige would sometimes perform this exact stunt when leading in the ninth inning. He would literally wave his entire outfield and infield off the diamond, leaving him alone to face the batters, and then proceed to strike out the side. It was an audacious display of both skill and showmanship that never failed to electrify crowds, even those rooting for the opposing team. Billy Dee Williams' character Bingo Long was openly based on Paige, capturing not just his pitching prowess, but his flair for entertainment and his understanding that barnstorming required giving fans a show along with competitive baseball. The film's inclusion of this authentic detail helps ground the fictional story in real Negro League history and pays tribute to Paige's legacy as both an athlete and entertainer. Page eventually got his due recognition, being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1971, and his career spanned an estimated 5 decades when counting his Negro League, Major League, and barnstorming years combined. Fact 14. Billy D. Williams and James Earl Jones. Pre-Star Wars pairing the Bingo Long, Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings featured a remarkable pairing that would take on even greater significance a few years later. Billy D. Williams and James Earl Jones appeared together as co-stars 3 years before they would both become iconic parts of the Star Wars universe. In Bingo Long, Williams played the charismatic title character while Jones played Leon Carter, the team's power-hitting catcher, and their on-screen chemistry and friendship drives much of the film's emotional core. The two actors, both accomplished performers with extensive theater backgrounds, brought depth and authenticity to their roles as Negro League players fighting for independence and dignity. Then in 1980, Williams would appear as Lando Calrissian in The Empire Strikes Back, while Jones provided the voice of Darth Vader, making them forever linked in one of cinema's most beloved franchises. While they don't share scenes in The Empire Strikes Back, Lando and Vader occupy different spheres of the story. The connection between these two talented black actors appearing in both a Negro League baseball film and Star Wars represents an important moment in Hollywood's slowly evolving representation. What makes the Bingo Long pairing particularly special is that both actors get to play fully realized, complex characters rather than supporting roles. Williams brings his trademark smooth charm to Bingo, while Jones reveals his considerable comedic timing as Leon, showing a playful side that audiences didn't always get to see from the actor who would become known for his commanding dramatic presence. Their work together in Bingo Long showcased their range and chemistry years before they would both become science fiction legends. Fact 15. Baseball Hall of Fame, Preserved Film, Memorabilia. The National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, recognized the historical and cultural significance of the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings by acquiring memorabilia from the film for its permanent collection. The Hall of Fame obtained 5 original lobby cards from the movie, each measuring 11 inches by 14 inches and depicting different scenes from the production. Lobby cards were marketing materials that movie theaters would display in their lobbies to promote upcoming films, similar to movie posters but smaller, and typically produced in sets that told a visual story of the film. These particular cards feature the movie's major stars, Billy D. Williams as Bingo Long, James Earl Jones as Leon Carter, and Richard Pryor, Charlie Snow, in various scenes that capture both the baseball action and the dramatic moments of the story. Beyond the lobby cards, the Hall of Fame also displays authentic jerseys that were actually worn by cast members during the production of the film. These colorful uniforms help visitors understand the visual style of barnstorming teams and how they used eye-catching designs to attract crowds in small towns across America. The preservation of these artifacts speaks to the film's importance in documenting and popularizing Negro League history. While Bingo Long is a fictionalized story, it helped bring attention to a crucial chapter of baseball history that had been largely ignored by mainstream culture. The Hall of Fame's decision to include Bingo Long memorabilia alongside artifacts from actual Negro League teams acknowledges the film's role in educating audiences about this important era and honoring the real players who inspired the story. These items remain on display as part of the museum's ongoing efforts to preserve all aspects of baseball history.